and Kumba World Bank Road Project boost development. Get with these and others on the pages of the Dawn newspaper for this day. From the Dawn newspaper, we move on to Le Messager. Le Messager of late Pius Njawe talks of the Martinez Zogo affair. Outcry live. You can find more on how yesterday court session went in the Yaoundé Military Tribunal. Get to read details on that story on page 2. We'll take you now to this other story. The trajectory talks of unstoppable Ekambi Dibonge, and we move on to St. Mary's International College. Open business day 26th day of April, and electoral list CPDM in the mood of massive registration on elections Cameroon register. Away from Le Messager, let's take you to Boya with the paper Volcanic Times of Charles Mbola. The Volcanic Times for this day says at official launch of Great Support Cultural Development Association, Chris Kuda raises fund, launches CFA France 257 million for community hall project. In that said paper, Light Up Fako Project, Dr. Molwa Simit Beke, mayors of Fako unveils consignment of 1,000 solar lamps, and bishops of Cameroon call on citizens to prioritize voting. Get to read more during the just ended National Episcopal Conference, the 49th edition. Of course, away from that, let's make a stop over from the paper from Bamenda. Larry's Times for this day says at 49th General Assembly meeting of the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon, bishops prioritizes social justice, youth employment. In that said publication, Northwest Regional Assembly hits 100% 2023 project execution, shifts focused. In that said paper, Santa, the paper report on cooperative society development authorities commits to boost agricultural productivity in Santa division of Santa subdivision of Mezam division of the Northwest region. Bamenda City Council Mayor presents 4-year enviable report card. Get to read more on the report card of Paul Achombong. We move on to Inside the PCC. The paper report on Presbyterian Church in Cameroon honors the late moderator emeritus Reverend Dr. Nyansako Nico memorial service that just ended some days ago in the town of Kumba, where he was laid to rest in his home. And we move on to something else this time around with the people. The son of Nobel Waso from Limbe says exclusive interview about Bala speaks truth to power, separatist opposition all in Cameroon. And in that said paper, the no-nonsense Minister of Territorial Administration Paul Atanganji gives MTN Orange 60 days to comply with identification of subscribers on their various network services. My life is in danger for upholding my childhood virtues. Samuel Etofi speaking during his late father's funeral in their native Ngambe village in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral Region. We take you to SDF National Chairman Honorable Joshua Osi on nationwide tour to boost grassroots support of the major opposition party in the country, the Social Democratic Front, and Hydrocarbon Prices Stabilization Fund hosts 37th extraordinary session. You can find more on that said paper for today. The Guardian Post of Christian Gal for this morning talks of as leadership tussle drags on anti-Cabral Libre PCRN faction announces Congress. In that said paper, editorial 2025 elections, why Bia should head Bishop's advice. Tumble houses properties raised as clandestine four-way house explodes. And fourth, Cameroon International Investment I beg your pardon. It says fourth Cameroon Investment Forum kicks off in Douala tomorrow. We'll move on to something else with the paper, the Herald Tribune. The Herald Tribune says 49 plenary assembly of bishops of Cameroon. Bishops strike government over high cost of living. You can find details on that said paper for today. Cameroon Investment Forum opens April 17 in Douala, and Mancon community blazing up for to received the traditional ruler in Yaoundé. Mark Breeze embarks on European tour to scout talent for Team Cameroon. We visit now the French language tabloid. We kickstart with Le Jour for this morning talks of electricity. It says 3 centers of production and 16 others realized within the duration of 10 years. And in that said paper, Cameroon exports some 5.7 billion of beer in 2022. All African games that just ended in Accra, Ghana. It says Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Professor Nassis Mele Kombi, conveys the congratulatory message from President Paul Biya to the different athletes who represented Team Cameroon in Accra, Ghana. Away from that, let's make a stopover with the health paper Quotidien Eco Santé for this morning. Talks of the massive vaccination against yellow fever, how some 3.7 million Cameroonians are being vaccinated against yellow fever in the localities of Njongha, Menganga, Tigray, Tinagri, all of the Adamawa region in northern Cameroon. We move on to the 12th edition of the conference of AFAMV. It talks of Valérie Varé in the modes. You can find details on the said paper. The Medical Council of Pharmacists in the country welcomed some 59 new members in their General Assembly meeting that just ended in the city of Yaoundé. Eco News Quotidien for this morning talks of transhumans. It says Ray Buba put in the training. You can find more on that set energy sector that was visited by the Minister of Water Resources and Energy, Gaston Edundu Isumba. Away from that, we move on to the Semak sub-region stock exchange market, known in French as BV Mark. The paper reports on the positive results gained from 2023 and prospects for 2024. Get to read more on Eco News for this day. La Republic newspaper for this morning talks of President Paul Biya forgives the Cameroonians who mastermind the mafia unraveling in a new. We move on to Kame Press for this morning. It talks of young medical doctors or young medical practitioners in the country. 55% of them are moving out of the country for greener pastures, according to Kame Press newspaper for today. GCAM, Celestin Tawamba takes the presidency of GCAM. You can find more following the first General Elective Assembly of the Cameroon measure of Cameroon Enterprises and Cameroon Union of Employers, GCAM, that just ended in Bonanjo with Celestin Tawamba being elected as president. On the pages of Kame Press for today. From Kame Press, let's move on to Cameroon Tribune. Cameroon Tribune for this day talks of the consulate services of Cameroon, how digitalization is playing a huge tool as many persons who wants to visit Cameroon are now going online to get their assistance on how to come to the country with the paperwork already via the internet connection and education. The third term begins in earnest. This follows yesterday's school resumption for the third and final term for primary and secondary school children. Get to read details on that set story for this day. And we move on to the sale of arms and ammunition. It says government caution vendors on that practice. Martinez Ogo affair. The paper reports on how the plenary of yesterday went at the Yaoundé Military Tribunal in the nation's political capital city of Yaoundé. The economic newspaper Quotidien Economy for this morning reports on financing certain projects of precisely road projects by the African Development Bank that still continues. Get to read more on that said paper for today. We move on to this other story. Cameroon and Great Britain. The paper reports on business between both countries that are at the forefront of many business persons from the UK and Cameroon. And we move on to something else this time around with the paper Tribune d'Afrique. Tribune d'Afrique reports on obituary. A friend of the media dies. Get to read more on the demise of Bibunchua, of the demise of the late Cameroonian who was buried in his native village of Bibunchua in the West region. Marafa Amidou Yaya, the paper reports on the medical evacuation of the former Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, Marafa Amidou Yaya. The Bamoum Museum in Fumban, the paper reports on how that museum was inaugurated over the weekend, and the massive turnout of natives and non-native from the known division of the West region who turn out massively for that that inauguration ceremony. Khmer Press for this morning reports on the anti-French sentiment rising from Africa and the use of the CFA franc in some French former colonies of Africa. The paper reports, when will the end of the CFA France come? Get to read more on that said paper for today. Samuel Eto'o has been summoned by the Confederation of African Football, CAF, with headquarters in Egypt, to appear for matters concerning him. Away from Khmer Press, we take you now to the satiric newspaper of Le Populi. Le Populi for this morning reports on the end of a new. You can find more on that paper for today, following the multiple problems that the company is causing Cameroonians as current outages are virtually all over the nation. The Rapport of Karot Samba for this morning reports on the Martinez Zogo affair, as the paper talks on how the yesterday court hearing went at the Yaoundé Military Tribunal. Get to read more on that said paper. Peace in Cameroon, reality that face the problem of peace in the nation. Telegram News for this morning sees the All African Games in Accra that just ended. President Paul Biya sends message of congratulatory messages to Minister of Sports and Physical Education Narcisse Mele Kombi. Jacques Yoki Onana, the mayor of Yaoundé 6th Council, congratulates and commune with Muslim community in the Yaoundé 6th Council that is hugely consisting of Anglophones. You can find more on that set paper for today. Le Point for this morning reports on his own truth. The paper focus on the choice of power, CPDM, and presidential elections for 2025. The truth of the president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement Party, Maurice Kamto. In that said paper of Le Point talks of massive sensitization for Cameroonians to get the fiscal rates that was stipulated by the Ministry of Finance. Mutation newspaper report on the Central African Economic and Monetary Commission, known in French as CEMAC, the Accord of Disaccord. You can find more on that said paper, or the Agreement of Disagreement. You can find more on that said publication for today. The paper still focuses on the court session of the slain journalist Martinez Zogo, as the paper focuses on how it went yesterday at the military tribunal in Yaoundé. We move on to MTN Elite One Championship that is still currently unfolding in Cameroon, as Victoria United of Limbes still continue with persistence of victory. You can find more on that said publication for today. Open letter to President Paul Biya, Dr. Arbenze denounces the decrees of the Universal Health Coverage, known as CSU in French. We move on to something else, this time around with the paper of Le Messager. The Messager reports on the outcry live on Martinez Zogo murder and court session that is still unfolding in the military tribunal in Yaoundé. We take you now to electoral register on the paper for this morning, how the CPDM political party is on a massive aggressive mode for many persons to subscribe or get registered on Elecam's registration lists as 2025 general elections draw near. And PSG, we move on to the sports paper, Punch Sports Extra Extra for this morning talks of Paris Saint-Germain roll out Rashford move and Gunners need Ronaldo, and we move on to Oshuala maintains 100% start off for Bayern Munich FC. Let's talk on the fate of Cameroonian Kylian Mbappe of Cameroonian extraction. The paper reports on Catalan's first semi-finals in 5 years, and can Paris Saint-Germain turns the tides again against Rojilico. You can find more and the stay of Kylian Mbappe. PSG yet to take Osimhen decision according to Romano. And the Nation newspaper from Nigeria talks of Ibadan attack. Please launch manhunt for Abiola's widow. In that said paper, Trump criminal trial begins in a New York court. You can find more on that said paper. Israel-Iran war looms. We'll move on to another power grid collapse. It says paralyzes businesses over activities. We take you to crude oil reserve hit to 37.50 billion barrels. We move on to the paper First News Nigeria. First News report on Ganduje survives Kano APC war scope. And in that said paper, many Nigerians unaware Tinubu now paying more for fuel subsidy according to RFI. Let's take you to defend Tinubu or quit government. Matowale tells northern appointees. The Punch newspaper for this morning says vandalism worsened, great collapse as gas shortage slashes power supply all across Nigeria. State police law amendment may take 2 years, and naira nears 1,000 naira per $1 according to parallel markets. Dangote modular refineries to pay naira for crude oil exporting, and President Donald Trump appears in court today in New York regarding some charges against him. Get to read more on the pages of the Punch. For today, New Telegraph for this morning says Ganduje purported suspension. We were impersonated. 27 ward chair says as Kano APC counter sacked them all. And Nigeria's oil reserve hits 37.5 billion barrel, gas 208.26 billion TFC according to NUPRC. Shetima Nyako and Gimba taught Chibok girls rescue according to Clark alleges. The Guardian newspaper for this day says household groans over food price as inflation defines interventions. Get to read details on that paper on page 6. And that said, the Guardian, nation grid suffers grid collapse wasn't 20 hours per target, and what suspend Ganduja alleged graft state chapter kicks. Nigerian Tribune, that's the national prince from Nigeria, report on APC controversy in Kano over Ganduje's suspension. World Exco state chapter encounter move as what leaders disowned suspension, and Oyo Secretariat invention please parade some 21 suspects as army vows preventive resurgence. Leadership newspaper for this day plots to remove Ganduje Damagong thickens, and in that set leadership Tinubu paying more for fuel subsidy according to RFI. Aromi died of natural causes according to parental negligence cause according to the paper that gives this report from Corona. And we move on to Nigerian News Direct for this morning. It says Nigerians economy will be liberated according to President Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Pastor Paul Enyeche apologizes and says he had no intention to embarrass church member during church service of testimony time in the Dunamis Church over there in Abuja. We move on to Lagos police confirm arrest of soldier for allegedly stabbing motorcyclist. Get with that sad human interest story on the paper for today. We wrap up the program with the last publication. Daily Independent, still from Nigeria, says defense Tinubu or quit, according to Matawale, who tells Northern appointees. In that said paper, invasion of Oyo government secretariat, Yoruba nation agitators named sponsor justifies action. In that said paper, TNC restore collapse grades and blames incident on fire. We move on to Kano. APC cracks down on what official for suspending Ganduje or from Kano State in northern Nigeria. With the Daily Independent newspaper, this is